So the thing about standards, it doesn't matter what standards you have to have one, right? Now, you can raise the standard, you can have a higher standard, you can double the standard, but when you have a standard, most people don't believe they can do it, okay? So if you make it easy for them, you've confirmed you don't believe in them either. Always remember that. And so now you're just trying to motivate them or negotiate with them, and that's not really how you get the most out of people, right? You understand? If the number's the number, it's the number. If it's 10,000, it's 10. It's not 9,500. It's not 8,900. It's not 9,800. It's 10. It's 20. It's not. If it's 15 recruits, it's 15 recruits. You know, I miss bonuses because I've been one IBA short or $10 in premium. I can't write to the company and say, man, I was $10 short. Sorry, you know. Xander said he was going to do it, but he didn't. Or I had a client, they said this, right? So, anyways. All right. So, I'm going to talk about some appointment stuff. It's going to go a little further than appointments. But so, why do you need to go on a lot of appointments, okay, especially with new people? Right? We have some new people in here. You need to go, and not just go on a lot of appointments, go on a lot of appointments with your trainer. Okay. I witnessed in my training, I witnessed 19 training sales. Okay. So I don't know how many appointments I went on, probably at least 30, if not 35, but I loved going out with my trainer in the field. I learned a lot. It was like going to college. That's the way I felt. I learned more than I did at university. Okay. Now I didn't really care about my college, but those training appointments were so much fun. And I learned everything. I learned the good, I learned the bad, I learned the ugly, I learned referrals. What I mean by referrals, obviously getting referrals, but going on referral appointments. So I saw the difference. I saw, sometimes I beg my trainer and say, hey man, Mark, come take me out. It was a one-legged appointment, right? And I'd sell it to him. Oh man, it's fine. The husband can make the decision. And then he would go, and then right at the end, say, I need to talk to my wife. And I saw that. I saw underwriting challenges, right? Where we write something, somebody got declined because they lied on their underwriting. Or they didn't volunteer information. Or they really just genuinely didn't know, and something came back in the medical exam. I saw college savings plans. I saw group insurance. I saw IUL. I saw whole life. I saw single premium. I saw term. I saw blended families. I saw people divorced, alimony. I saw everything in the financial, and I learned a lot. And I always revert back to my field training. I had such great field training. I learned closing and questions and overcoming objections. And too many times I see new people, they're only going on 3 or 4. I never thought, I got licensed right away. But I never was worried about the short-term money. I knew I would always get the long-term money. If I could learn and become like my trainer and be able to present and be just a killer at that kitchen table, right? The king or the queen of the kitchen. I knew I was going to make a lot of money, and that happened. Second thing that changed my whole perspective was I learned in sales it's all about questions, right? I thought in sales you had to, kind of over-talk the client, you had to be pushy, you had to be aggressive, and there are times that you need to be aggressive, okay? But it's far more important to understand questions and pull people in and just kind of change people's thought process and patterns by asking the right questions. But one of the biggest epiphanies I had was learning how telling stories impact how you present. And having an arsenal of stories, of impactful stories, stuff that you believe in, that you get passionate about. And there might not be yours, right? I know some of you guys are guilty of stealing my stories, right? And that's okay, right? Josh said, I worked at SAIC. But you can borrow stories, right? I mean, obviously give credit to the original storyteller, right? All my stories are plagiarized too, right? I got them from somebody. Now, do I make it my own? Sure. Did I hear it from an audio or a speech or a book or something that impacted me and I used it in my whole? Of course. That's where you get that artistic inspiration. But this is probably one of the most underrated skills you can have, right? In our business. So, you'll hear this, you write this down, facts tell, stories sell, right? I think it's a famous book. I read the one, I think we got it was for financial advisors, but there's a book, I think it's somebody, it was Jesse Eisenberg, that's an actor, right?
It is.
He's a Facebook guy.
Yeah.
But I think you can Google the book, right? I didn't read the original, but I heard it's really good. But I read the Story Selling for Financial Advisors, really good book, phenomenal book. So when you tell stories, you obviously you make an emotional connection with people. Two, they will remember it, right? No one will, if I'm listening to something, and someone's telling a story, I turn it up. I listen because I want to hear the story. If I see an athlete and they're giving something and they're on a podcast or they're interviewing them and they start telling a story, I always listen because I want to hear the value in the story that they're telling. And then obviously it gives you credibility, right? Because you're connecting with somebody. There's a humanness when you tell a story. Okay? So you should have your own personal stories. Now, and I'm being very sincere when I say this, you have to keep the personal boundaries. What do I mean by that? What are off-topic, areas where you can jump the shark?
It's very
Politics,
relationships,
relationships.
background or personal life.
Yeah.
Personal.
Okay. So a story is not a therapist session, right? And if you must, okay, because some clients, if they want you to share, right, their heartbreak, use a ghostwriter story.
Oh.
Don't say it's you. Just say, yeah, I know somebody, yeah, he was going through that too. Don't say me, okay? Because then you'll lose your credibility. Because someone has to be the parent in the presentation,
Yeah.
okay? And you have to be very careful, right? Because I understand you're connecting with people, you're having fun, they want to listen to you. Sometimes, hey, when I've gone to the kitchen, I've seen it all, man. I mean it. I've seen clients cry, I've seen them be happy, I've seen them fight right there, I've seen somebody go upstairs, I've seen it all. We've all seen this. Right? I've lost more stories than people have in my mind because I just don't remember them. And someone said, what? That happened? Yeah, you were right there. Right? So, right, but you don't participate fully. All right? But you should have personal stories. You should have stuff about your successes, your defeats, which I'll talk about in a minute. With finances, with the business. That connects you with people. You should have a lot of client stories, man. This is the best one. Some of you guys have a book of clients, and that's awesome. No, you need a book of client stories. How you got the client, why they moved forward, their success, how you overcame their negative thinking about it, how you got them. Man, they were paying $5,000, but what did you say? What happened? Yeah, they went back. They talked to. We did a three-way with their agent, and this is what the agent said. They remember those things forever. Really, they have that policy. I have this policy. They're a doctor. How'd they get into it? They're educated. They have a master's degree. They were married for this. They put in $50,000. These are all stories that you tell. You have positive examples. You have negative examples. And you should use opposition. Hate, love. Right? Obviously, I use that with the job a lot. Right? I talk about how much I hate my job and how much I hated working. That's a story. I always tell stories about that because people can relate to traffic and asking for time off and then getting scheduled to come in when they weren't scheduled. Getting passed up for a promotion, getting bumped off the schedule, having a different commute, working for a crazy boss, how much I hated that. Then I can talk about how much I love creating my own schedule and having some freedom and being in a leadership position and controlling my income and working harder and I'm telling stories and I'm using these opposite thought patterns to get people feeling all the different range of emotions, right? There's an art to this. Pain, joy, frustration, excitement, defeat and success, discouragement and hope. Boredom, passion. So, and I'm going to ask a couple people probably to share a little bit. If you have one, you can raise your hand. See, but you should always have a lot of insurance stories. Obviously, I think no one wants to talk about dying. No one wants to pay a monthly premium. Insurance is something that no one wants to pay for and think that they're not going to need it, right? I always give examples of, we have a home security system, right? And I haven't always had one. Now I have one, but in my old home, they came in, they did a presentation in ADP. I think it was ADP. They knocked on my door, and they came in. And I was like, all right, man, come in. I was going to try to recruit the guy, so I always let them come in and always let them do a presentation, right? So if you have a house and people come knock on your door, you always should flip the script. Remember, those guys are motivated. They're going door to door. They're working hard. They're at least starting. You have a better opportunity. Always talk to those people. Okay. So I let them come in. They start doing the presentation. They talk about home security and how their house got broken into. And I'm thinking, okay. And then we get to the price, and immediately I'm trying to justify why I don't need this, right? And I'm not scoffing, and I hope you don't think a certain way, but it's like, what's $70, man? It's security. It's worth it, right? I should have it. I have young kids. I should have a little camera security system where my kids can check in. I can open the door for them. All that stuff after school, right? So, but in my mind, I'm like, oh man, 70. Do I really need it? Like, what's the reality? Am I gonna get broken in? Even if I did get broken in, my kids are great at hide and seek. I promise this is going through my head. I mean, they're fast. They can run. Right? This is how I'm thinking. Because I don't want to pay for something that I don't need. See, they love your presentation. When you start talking price or value what they see, that's when they're going to start scurrying off. And so then you have to start using your stories, right? And so for urgency, why they need to apply. You got to have a story, right? You got to have an underwriting story. Sheila, what's an underwriting story? I'm sure you have them. Any kind.
So I had a client that, I have several clients, but I have I'm trying to think of a recent one, but I have a client right now, okay, that actually got approved for table rating of 5, right? And also a smoker on top of that, and obviously issues in the back, right, from when this client was younger, but it's like $105 for only $150K, right? And I said, look, we could always reapply later when things get better, but it's better to have something than nothing at all. And the first thing I said was, what is your, because there's nothing I can change from the history, obviously, right? And I said, what is a comfortable amount that you could probably afford? Okay? And they said, oh, I can do this. So I quoted, and she's moving forward.
So you talked about they applied. We didn't know if they'd get approved, but they got approved for something, right? I don't know if it was a wholesaler or somebody. Small though, I don't know why I'm thinking you said this, but I easily could be wrong. About a client. Did you have a client do a medical exam and they found something and was that you? And they didn't know that they had an issue? Who had that? A heart
I had
condition or
one of those
kidney
too.
issue? I thought it was you, but maybe I could be wrong. But you know, like they didn't know, and it was a major issue, right? I'm not gonna make something up, but say they didn't know and they got tested and they got
Yes.
You know, they have
that was another one.
a heart thing, right?
Yeah.
So go through the underwriting. We don't know if you're gonna qualify. Go through the, hey, I had a client and they were scared. They were scared. They were terrified. They got preferred. Now, I wouldn't give prices, okay, because then they get prices in their mind. And then if they don't have the price that you're right, if we don't offer the same price, then that, well, why don't I get that, right? And now we're fighting a different battle. But you got to have stories, a ton. And obviously Sheila's going to have a lot because she sees a lot of clients, right? So that's why you can borrow a story. And the more activity you do, the more stories you're going to get. And it doesn't always have to be bad, right? It can be good. I love hearing a great story. I love watching a great movie. I don't want everybody to die at the movie. I like a hero. I like them winning. I don't like something that happens in the movies where the tragedy like ends as a tragedy. I don't like that. Like those are things I'm like, oh man, come on, dude. Really? She didn't make it? You know, I don't like that, right? So I feel like some clients are like that too, right? So you got to have uplifting stories, right? Group insurance, you got to have great stories with that. Okay, why? Just like Samir said, we live in an area where people's idea, it's crazy to think this, but it is, okay? And if this is you, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to offend you, but it's crazy to think that people's identity are really tied to their job.
Right.
Like not their job, like I get if you're a teacher, like the company. Sally Mae. Right? I mean, they're so proud, right? You know, like in my op meeting, I always tell this story, right? When I talk about wearing my badge everywhere. You know why I say that? Because I see these guys out, they're doing it. I'm like, yo, it's the gym. Why do you have your Freddie Mac badge on? Like, what are you thinking here?
Oh my gosh.
Like you're cool because you have eye teacher? Like, I don't understand like what's going on, right? So people's identity tied to their job, they think my company's going to take care of me. My group insurance is different. So you have to have stories of group insurance not paying out, group insurance being inadequate, group insurance not just not paying, totally screwing over a family. I missed one day, I didn't work this day, I didn't get a payout. At my worst, lowest point in my life where I needed coverage, the group insurance didn't pay. Because I got disabled, I was on our client, they were on their deathbed. They were hospitalized for 3 months. Cancer. And one of the, I wouldn't call it saving graces, but one thing that they were clinging on positively, I have some insurance through my work that's going to help my family survive this. And it didn't pay. You got to have a story for that. Because some people think they have insurance when they don't. And they're not applying for coverage because they think their company's going to take care of them. Obviously, urgency. You know, with that, right, I have a lot of stories where, you know, we apply, and during the underwriting process, they die, right? I mean, we've delivered claims for that. We've denied claims for that. I've seen both. They didn't end up doing their medical exam during the application, or they procrastinated and then something happened, they become uninsurable, and clients have even passed away. Right? Jen and I went through a scenario, right? And I'm not trying to shame the client, I guess, I mean, you know, the beneficiary, but we went through it with an agent, and the applicant during underwriting didn't do all their stuff, and then they died, and then the beneficiary started reaching out and like, hey, yeah, she had insurance, this and that. It's like, no, and then, but we had to show, literally, proof. Like, hey, here are the text messages. Here's the, we told them to do underwriting. You're not covered yet because they needed extra stuff. And we had to provide all that material, right? Now, we're not going to tell the depths of that story, but, you know, yeah, you should apply right now. You don't know if something can happen. You could, right? You could get a stroke. Something, a major medical thing could happen instantly. You don't know. If you're protected today, you're good. You got it. You don't have to worry about it. Investments. Obviously, same thing, urgency. Why they need to start now, why they need to live below their means, starting small, right? One of the great tools we have in your dashboard if that investment license is American Funds has an awesome thing. If your investment license is called Account Value History, and Samir does an awesome job of this. You can probably send this out or present this one training. You should have 4 or 5 client examples of clients, and you can use his. You can redact the information, but of clients putting in money, withdrawing a lot, still having a lot. I have a lot of clients, right? They put in $5,000, and they'll have $45,000. Literally, 15, 16 years later, they put in $5,000, and maybe not 45, but 35,000, right? And you should have that example. Like, yeah, they did 1 year. Imagine 5,000 being almost 40,000 or almost $50,000. Show that to people. Or somebody putting in $5,000 a year for, and I know some of your careers are not this long, but 3 years, 5 years, and show how much they have. And I don't care what I say, I don't care what the presentation says. When you show somebody, a real client that you have, and they can feel that from you, that's better than any slide we have. Any example, right? I mean, I always tell the story, right? One of my training appointments was my sister, first one. We used those 529s. Those paid for my entire niece's colleges. They didn't have those. So I go in, I set an appointment. My sister starts putting money away for my 2 nieces, and it paid for UVA and JMU 4 years. Because of the appointment we did. Because of us, some kids are going to college. Debt, if you're able to help people pay off. But one thing I use debt a lot is living below your means, because that's a big one, right, for people. So I use a lot of stories about, your clients, even if they're making, $3,000 a month, I've helped them save $200 a month. And now that client has $1,000 saved. Or I showed them how to rearrange their budget, and they were making $3,000 a month. And for example, in an area in their budget, they were spending, $250 a month for life insurance. We were able to reduce the cost by $175. Some of you guys do that for people. It's not just an insulated insurance project. You fix their overall budget, man. $175 for a client making $3,000 a month is a lot of money. And they can put that money away, or they can apply it towards debt, or they don't get into debt. All right, so anybody have any other good stories on anything that I've said? What do you have? Do you have some go-tos that you use?
I have a lot of stories for group insurance. This is a good topic because a lot of the stories that I have, many of them are personal, but some of them are borrowed. But there's 2 stories for you guys that are not necessarily things that you can use in the field, but I got them from you. So Shaq was telling a story many, many years ago that he sat down with a client, and they said that they had no money to save, they had no money to invest, there was just no room in their budget. And he followed up with them 6 months later, and they said that they had a tax issue, and now there was like $1,000 a month that was automatically coming out of their account to pay back their taxes. So now they were really strapped. And what that told Shaq was, he's like, look, you can figure out a way to save money, because when the government said you better give us $1,000 a month, you figured out a way to give it to them. You're not out of house and home. They weren't losing their home. So anyone can find a way if they really needed to, and when they're forced into it, they're going to do it. Another story you told was, someone said, hey, I can't come on Saturdays. There's just no way I can come on Saturdays. I have this going on, I have that going on, whatever. Then they got in trouble with their license, and it's mandatory from the DMV to get your license back. When does that class happen? It happens on a Saturday. And now for 6 months they're going on a Saturday. Or whatever it was, 6 weeks or whatever. But they couldn't find a way when they were forced into it. So what that tells us is that when someone is motivated enough, when it means something to them, when it means enough to them, they're going to figure out a way to either save the money, find the money, or rearrange their schedule, get someone to watch their kids, do whatever they need to do, and especially with the Saturday thing, man, like business and leadership and success is about solving problems. How many problems can you solve? How big are they? And how many problems can you handle at the same time? And people can't figure out for 2 hours what to do with their kids, or what to do about their job, or what to do about their sports, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not setting yourself up to be really successful in life if that's not something that you can figure out for 2 hours a week.
I'll never forget my first claim that Shaq helped me with. I was training a police officer, Clifton, and I met both of his mom and stepdad. The stepdad was kind of arrogant, he didn't want to apply, and the mom made him pull the group insurance out and said for sure he was not the policyholder. So because of her, he applied, and he had a lot of medications, so I really thought he was going to get declined, but it came out, at that time we had joint policies, it was supposed to be 180 together, but it came out to be 302. And for whatever reason, they took the policy, even though he didn't want it at first. They ended up divorcing 2 months later, and he changed the beneficiary, but he passed away. They got approved July, he passed away December. And Shaq helped me get the claim delivered in hand to that beneficiary. So I tell clients, it's not easy to get approved with our company because we're not one of those companies that just approve you and make it hard for you to get a claim. If we approve you from day one. And as long as you pay, we pay.
It's
And
very good.
Yeah, and the story is, you can get divorced and even in death screw your ex by giving. So that's a good point. In that story, that the divorce 2 months later was completely irrelevant. Serious. Don't tell irrelevance. I don't know where's this going. You'll get no money from me.
I had a client that I sat with in October, this was like a few years ago. And the thing is, I did an appointment with her because she was the main decision maker. And she's like, well, I just still have to talk to my husband. 2 months later, and then I followed up one time, I said, hey, have you talked to your husband? Oh, we still haven't decided. December, the day before Christmas, she had a brain aneurysm. And thank God she survived. And of course, when she got better, she wanted to apply. I said, it's too late. See, this is why you always apply first and then decide later. You just never know.
Now, what's the story that we have that you got from me about buying cheaper insurance?
Which one?
So I had a client, and it was this Indian guy. He bought insurance from me because his friend was my recruit. And so he just bought insurance from me. What I didn't know was that he bought insurance from AIG right around the same time, right?
Yes.
And so he had a policy that I didn't know about from AIG, and then he had a Primerica policy. Well, he died in India, and it was within the 2 years, and international claims are difficult to pay, right? Like as an agent, you gotta learn how to navigate it, you gotta walk them through it, and AIG just simply wouldn't pay. So our death benefit paid $600,000, but the $300,000 from AIG, that one never paid. And I have the text messages to prove it, the whole conversation with the family and everything. So, was that AIG is known as a cheaper company, like they have rock bottom rates, but very high renewal rates, and you just don't get any service, you have no one to fight for you, right? Because then I started fighting for that claim representing them, and even with me involved, I couldn't get them to pay it.
Yes, I have a story with my sister. I remember she went to this couple, they were Latinos, and the guy was the only source of income of the house. The lady has like 4 kids. And they said they wanted to apply, but they didn't have their money at the time. So they said, come with us next week. Next week comes, she called her, and they didn't pick up. And then they just started delaying. One time I remember she called within the month. She called a guy, and he kind of answered. I guess he didn't look at the phone, and he hung up. She felt bad. And 2 months after, the guy died. And the lady, when they asked the lady, someone else, the one that referred my sister to the guy, she was like, yeah, we were going to go to see her on the weekend. But that was a lot. So that $80 cost me like $250, and now they have no income.
So he said he couldn't afford it.
No, they just didn't come. They didn't pick up when they tried to speak.
So he just didn't complete it. He said he wanted to do it, but then she just kind of, I guess.
Putting it off.
Yeah, he put it off.
Actually, just got has resolved that one of my clients, and he was saying that his blood work looks really good, but somehow he got clogged up. I'm gonna have to deal with them to see what we can do, but yeah, but some people, they don't wanna pay, I guess. You know, they don't look at the bigger picture. But he almost got killed at the airport. Yeah, that's why he signed up, because he was working to deplane it and unplug the plane, I guess, and the other plane didn't see him, and he was gonna get sucked into the engine.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's why he got the policy with me. Yeah, and now he's saying that. Yeah.
Class 6 is normal. All it
Is
means is that you're normal.
But his butt won't come out, he said everything looks good, but like class 6.
Yeah, it's
No,
standard,
class
right?
six
It's
is
standard.
fine.
It just means that you're
Yeah,
normal.
do you mean tables or class?
It's still rated,
I
right?
just was just solid.
Yeah, we can talk about it after, but yes, great stories. I do wanna talk about what you just said, cause that's a really good, like, I think that that should be coined, right? Apply first, decide later, that's a great saying, like, when I heard that, I'm like, yeah, it's just like, very simple, it's very commanding. Apply first, decide later, that's what you should always say, apply first, decide later. We have a saying in our office, apply first, decide later. You're making a decision, we don't even know. Our company has to decide first, apply first, decide later, that's a great way to put it, but, yeah.
When you use that analogy, you put it on COD, because the first one is not like 100%, what would be the best?
I mean, so this is what I tell people all the time. When you're with a trainee, you should never do COD. You can put it COD later, but you should always close it, right? Always close it with money so they see it. Because some people, they use, you know, there's some new people in here, but they just love to do COD every time. I did a COD, I did a COD, you know. There are some times you should use COD, but I think you should always get the money,
Okay.
right? Always get the money. Because then what happens is your new agents start field underwriting, and that's not what we want. And the company doesn't want us to do
I
that
mean,
too.
the application will default you to a COD if it is a COD,
Yeah.
but if it
No,
is
no,
not,
no,
yeah.
just like you said, like, you know, if the person is not 100%, you say just apply, because we don't know if they're gonna approve you.
Well, what I always say is, look, you wanna have conditional coverage or not?
Yeah.
Because if you have the deposit, you have conditional coverage. If you don't have. If something happens, the family doesn't get it. But if something happens, your family could potentially get it.
So when you're in trainings and you're obviously on all these appointments and people are using their Top Gun stories, you know, ask people, right? You could, like I said, I have an arsenal of stories that I use in all the different scenarios, and it works, right? And you can tell, right? That's why I'm glad you guys shared some stories, because obviously you see people are very passionate, they're excited about their stories, and that translates very well to the kitchen table. All right, so everybody knows 5K this month. We're going to Chima. It's going to be awesome. Incentive March. 3 months left for this trip. I know a lot of you guys are on the bubble, or first place on track, or last place on track. So let's work really hard. We got op meeting today, op Wednesday. We have Saturday training. Let's set a bunch of appointments. Let's get a lot of work done today. All right, awesome job, team. Up, 1, 2, 3.